MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast, is presented by the Vintage Anime Video Network. Visit us at www.vintageanimevideo.com.
Japan, 1867. The Tokugawa dynasty stands upon failing legs. An invincible samurai, Kenshin Himura, walks the path of death and destruction, ushering in a new regime. Hated and feared by many, he is known as Hidokiri Batosai, the Manslayer. In retribution for his deeds, he has taken an oath to protect the innocent and never kill again. But old memories seldom fade, and bad habits die hard.
What are you, another wannabe samurai?
I wasn't finished speaking.
Rurouni Kenshin premieres Monday, March 17th at 6:30. Only to Abe.
Since this is, technically a Sailor Moon podcast, at the end, we'll just tie it into, we'll do a couple of, maybe similarities and differences or something.
Okay.
So you can be thinking about that, too. But for people who are wondering, what is Rurouni Kenshin?
It's a 90s manga and anime franchise that got popular in the US in the early 2000s when it was, that's when it was brought over here, and it was aired on Cartoon Network in the same block of programming that Sailor Moon S and Supers were aired. It's set in feudal Japan. It's about a young man named Kenshin Himura, who he's a really beautiful, androgynous guy with long red hair, and he has a cross-shaped scar on one of his cheeks, and he used to be an assassin for the government, and just emotionless steel killer. And nowadays, in the era of time where the series is set, he is a wanderer, atoning for his past, and he's still really skilled and will use force if necessary, but his katana now is a reverse blade sword, so it can't kill people unless he turns it around and uses it the opposite way. And the original anime has 90-something episodes, but it technically officially ends at episode 62 because the third season is all filler.
Why do you think they did that?
It was because fans in Japan didn't want to wait for the mangaka to finish official work. They the series was so popular that they just wanted more. So the studio just made more, and that's the only reason why it's all entirely filler for season 3.
Does that mean that it goes past where the manga actually ends technically?
The episode that it officially technically ends at, that is, canon to where the manga was at the time, is episode 62, and then everything after that, 63 through 94 or 96 or something like that, it's all just original studio created stuff.
So that's specific to the anime then. Okay, that's kind of cool actually, I think. Even though I don't know, did you like the last part of it?
I like parts of the final season, but I mean most people who like Kenshin agree that season 3 is not very good.
Would you almost say it's Does it lower the quality of it? Is it that bad, or is it just kind of like, meh, it's all right?
I mean, the animation still looks fine. It's just, yeah, the storylines aren't as interesting for the most part, and some of them are just more comedic than the show really ever is. So
that's interesting. It reminds me of a parallel to something we've talked about on here before. Maybe not you and me, but I think I touched on it in a special with Renee. But in Rainbow Bright, there's sort of a similar arc to it, even though it's a lot fewer episodes. It's only technically 13. But, like, the beginning of it is very serious and mystical and, like, fantasy. And it takes itself very seriously. And then for some reason, there was, like, turnover in the writing. And the last couple of episodes are very comedic and kind of wacky and more... They took some of the stuff away that made it so intriguing in the beginning.
yeah.
So I guess I kind of get what you're saying, where it's sort of like you have something that feels so epic, and then it ends up kind of like hokey pokey, and you're like, what happened? So yeah, I totally get that. Keep going. Was there more about explaining just generally about it?
No, I guess that was like the basic summary of it.
Okay. So when it first came over here, it sounds like it was around the same time as Sailor Moon. Is that correct?
It was the same time as seasons 3 and 4. Yeah.
Okay, so it came here probably like, I guess,
2000.
I don't know. Yeah. So 5 years after we got season 1 of Sailor Moon,
Yeah.
roughly. Do you know if they localized the anime or the manga first? Or were they done together?
I think it was done... I think actually probably the anime was first, and then the manga would have been pretty much around the same time. It has 2 dubs. The first one is not as widely available. It was more... The guy that played Kenshin stayed the same, and a lot of the actors in it came back in the main, like, widely released dub as other characters, but the first dub of Kenshin was called Samurai X, and it was it wasn't as faithful to the Japanese, and it's funny because the guy who directed it, Michael Sorich, who I just mentioned in our last episode, who voices Ray's grandpa in the Viz redub, he just didn't think that when he was directing the series, he just didn't think that it would ever become as popular as it did over here. So he did things like having the voice actors who played random side characters in various episodes use like totally random accents, like Irish accents. And representatives from Sony told him how popular the series actually was, and then that's what led to it getting redubbed with a more faithful translation and better acting. And I don't think you can watch like full episodes of the first dub anywhere. There's a lot of clips on YouTube, but yeah.
Which one would have been aired alongside Sailor Moon? Would it have been the first dub? When did that one happen?
It was I think there was only maybe like a year in between.
Okay.
So it was very like they
was it
really
did
fast.
they air it on the same channel?
Yeah, they were both on Cartoon Network.
Because I want to say I remember Samurai X, actually.
Okay.
I want to look up their like branding. Hold on. I don't know how to spell the word samurai. I'm learning. So, are there even any images from it?
It looks the same.
It looks... I just wanted to see what they did with the title. Yeah, I remember this title image.
Well, what you're probably seeing is another...
It's a DVD cover.
Yeah, because there was another... For some reason, the Kenshin anime movie was dubbed and released under a different licensing company than the TV series was, and for some reason they called the movie Samurai X, but they probably had to because of like legal reasons, since they weren't the original licensors that got to dub it.
You're right, that is this
Yeah.
movie here. Huh. So does that mean they probably never released even VHS of the original dub?
Nope. It's all just, everything that's...
It's just gone.
Yeah.
That is really wild. So that's kind of something interesting, though, for anyone out there who's like an internet Nancy Drew or whatever you want to call yourselves. People unearth stuff like this sometimes. Like we know with Sailor Moon, they eventually, after how many years, got the whole Saban Moon thing, or the Tune Makers, the full pilot episode. And we didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
So we know this exists somewhere in the world. And I'm sure someone out there could find, like you said, there's clips on YouTube, but I'm sure someone out there could find it and, like, you know, bring it to light however they choose to do so. So if anyone's listening who wants to take that challenge, go for it. That means, though, what you were saying, any kind of official media from the show is going to be the redub then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where can people watch it today? The, like, widely released one.
Yeah. Officially, I know that you can watch it on... I'm, like, 90% certain that you can watch it on Crunchyroll.
Most anime's on
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Let me see if I can do it quick. It looks... I'm going to say as of whenever this is being recorded. So we're recording this over the summer of 2023. We'll just say that. According to Google, it's available on Hulu, Crunchyroll, with the Funimation subscription, and that's it. Unless you purchase, like, you know, stuff yourself. So yeah, you've got 3 options for where you can stream this one. And I'm assuming all of those probably have the English and the Japanese options there. Do you have a preference?
I don't know. Probably the English. I mean, I love the Japanese a lot too. Kenshin is voiced by a woman in Japanese, and I think that was intentional because of how pretty he is. So it kind of just gives to the, and yeah, like warrior mystique. But yeah, I like both.
I have never seen the Japanese version
Okay.
at all, so I would love to see what that's like because that sounds interesting. And I actually recently got some VHS from this, which I think some of them are actually Japanese, and a couple are probably the redub. I'm not sure what episodes are on them, but I'll take a look when I have time this summer, and then we can like chat about it in an intro.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of cool that you have 3 options to watch this online right now. Either or, let us know in the comments somewhere what your preference is and why. And something else I want to know, because this is something I care about. I'm sure other people do too. But are there video games based off of the series?
Yeah, but none of them were released in the U.S. So the only appearance that Kenshin has in a U.S. game is I think it came out during COVID or a year before COVID or something. It's a video game for like PS3 and modern consoles like that called like Jump Force Stars or something. It's like a bunch of characters from the Shonen Jump magazine, and it's
Jump Force.
Yeah, it's a fighting game with a bunch of Jump characters, and Kenshin, and then the main villain in Kenshin, Shishio. They're both playable characters in it.
It's like anime Smash Bros. Kind
of.
For people who want to know, there are actually several video games for it, but like you said, they're all Japanese only. But it looks like there's games for the DS, PSP, PlayStation 2, probably like you just said, the Jump Force game on the newer systems. So whoever wants to like play them in Japanese, because I know some people who will, you know, get a Japanese Switch and download stuff or whatever. You can find those, I'm sure. They're probably on some of the Japanese, what do you call it? Virtual consoles or whatever. I'm not sure, but if you're one of those people, it would be worth looking if you want to do that. So yeah, there are several. I don't know what kind of games they are though. So
most of them are just probably like the highest rated one, or like the the best one is the one that was released for PS2. It's pretty much it's a hack slash style game, but it
Circle of Hell.
it follows the story of the anime, and you just like play through it. Yeah.
It says it's a third-person action game for the PlayStation 2. Came out in 2006, and it goes through the story of either Rurouni Kenshin, Sagara Sanosuke, Saito Hajime.
Yep.
Hajime, and then Shinomori. I say her last name. Aoshi. So you have 4 playable characters. Oh, and then I'll leave to unlock one. It's basically the plot of the Kyoto arc. What does that mean to you?
That's the second season of the anime.
Oh, okay. And then it says an American version was planned to be released by Bandai, but developers in 2007 canceled due to scheduling conflicts and low profit prospects. So they didn't think it would do very well over here.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the Sailor Moon video games have a similar storyline as to why they weren't brought over.
Okay. Rurouni Kenshin will return in a moment. Rurouni Kenshin now continues.
It was said that he was undefeatable.
What was your first experience with this series?
It was seeing, like, the first time that I saw Sailor Moon was just seeing it on Cartoon Network on Toonami way back then, and I just got hooked right away because I love any anime or manga that's set in feudal Japan. I always have, and especially if I personally like the art style mixed with that, then it's usually like 100% for me. So yeah, I've been into Kenshin as much as I'm into Sailor Moon for the same amount of time of my life.
What was it about it, do you think? Like, in that, because usually when you watch something that sticks with you that long, there's something in the first episode specific that really grabs your attention. You're like, what is that? Mm-hmm. And for me with Sailor Moon, it was definitely the attack, like, sequences and the transformations, because I'd never seen anything like that before. Yeah. And it was just like the colors and the brightness and plus the music combined with it. It kind of made a pretty perfect package. What do you remember hitting you so hard about this?
It was probably, I guess now that I think about it, it definitely would have been the action sequences and just the fact that Kenshin has a murderous side to him that he keeps in control for the most part throughout the entirety of it, and just any time that you get to see that slip through, it was just like super interesting from the get-go, even seeing it as a super young kid.
I get what you're saying. It's sort of that, like, this really, really great person character, and then every now and then it's like the total opposite slips out. And I think that kind of dichotomy can be really interesting.
Yeah.
Do you remember by any chance what the first episode was that you saw?
I don't think it would have been the very first one, but it was probably... Yeah, it was like something in season 1. It was probably one of the, like, canon to the story episodes in season 1, because season 1 has, like, a little bit of filler too, but season 2 doesn't at all. So yeah, I know it would have been like one of the latter canon episodes in season 1 that I saw on TV.
There's something that is just so specific about the time period when this came over here too. And it's like all of the animes I feel like that dropped right around that time in North America have a sort of similar, like, sheen of something extra. I don't really know how to describe it. But it could have just been like the time period where it was like the way we were consuming media was specific enough that, and like the timing it was shown when we were all sort of teenagers when we were supposed to be sleeping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know what it is, but they really, for a lot of our generation, forged whatever anime you stuck to, a lot of really strong bonds. So I love that we get to explore these different avenues of it, because This, I would say, is very different from Sailor Moon.
Totally.
But I think a lot of Sailor Moon fans would still really enjoy it, because I know I loved it whenever I watched it.
Yeah.
Before we do the character breakdown, what do you think is similar about Sailor Moon to Kenshin, and what is like some of the glaring differences? Or what are some of the differences?
Yeah, it's definitely more different than they are similar. Obviously, the type of show that it is, the type of audience that it caters to, the setting that it takes place. Similarities, I guess there's several strong female characters in Kenshin. The co-lead, like Kenshin's love interest, is just as important, and then there's another main female character in their main group that joins a little bit later, and then there's the villainous female characters, and so they're similar from that aspect. And then also, I mean, Kenshin is not remotely, like, he's older than Usagi by like almost 15 years, I think, and like he has a silly side too, but so they're both similar like that.
Would you say his personality is more similar? Maybe not personality, but his design, almost like character design, is more similar to Saturn than Usagi, if you had to pick someone? Just because of, the Mistress 9 being in there and all of that.
Yeah, I guess that's a good correlation.
That's kind of what I was thinking, is it's like his murderous side can be brought out by the right circumstances, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
What are the, like... Well, to me, the biggest similarity, though, is pretty men. That was what I noticed when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It's like... And I think I've said this on the show before, American, or whatever you want to call it, what are we, we're Western, right? Western cartoons are almost inherently drawn to be unattractive.
Yeah.
For some reason. And I've never really understood that, and I never noticed it until I saw anime. And then I was like, wait, animation can be pretty? And I think that while this show is kind of violent and has a lot of darkness to it, like you were saying, the animation style is still sort of pretty, isn't it?
Yeah, very, yeah.
And I'm not remembering it 100%, but would you say there are probably some moments even in the action sequences that are done in like an artistic way?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I only own one thing now, but I've owned more like higher end premium cells, like animation cells of and from Kenshin than any other anime like that I've collected. Yeah, a big reason is because of that, because there's so many like animators and character designers that worked on Kenshin that are now renowned in the industry, and there's just a number of especially as the series went on, it like the art just got better and better. That's kind of like how it is with Sailor Moon too. Yeah.
And I think that similarity too that I'm drawing is some of it is just anime specific, but not every anime does like, pretty men either. There are plenty of animes that are more like Dragon Ball Z, where it's like buff and masculine.
Yeah.
And like, I wouldn't say they're ugly in that, but I wouldn't describe them as like pretty either.
It's a different thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a totally different aesthetic. All right, let's do some character breakdowns. I'm going to let you take the lead here, but let's just start with Kenshin.
Like I mentioned in the beginning, Kenshin I think he's in his late 20s when the series starts. He's used to be an assassin for the government and just didn't have any emotion. And now when the series takes place, he has emotions, and he's much more happy and carefree most of the time on the surface, besides when he's fighting. He has a reverse blade sword, so he can't kill anybody, just seriously injure them unless he turns the sword around, which only happens whenever he gets brought back to his past self. Um, this the main female lead is Kaoru, who is a young woman who's a little bit younger than Kenshin, that they meet in episode 1 because she thinks that he's just wandering through where she runs a dojo of like teaching swordsmanship, and like the first episode starts with him just walking by. He's just wandering and walking by her dojo, and then she comes out all of a sudden pointing a wooden sword at him, accusing him of being the perpetrator of like murders that have been going on in the area. And then that's how they meet, and they end up falling in love and having children by the end of the series.
And what's her name again?
Kaoru.
Kaoru. That's her last name or her first name?
First name.
What's her last name?
Kamiya.
Kamiya Kaoru. And can you describe what she looks like?
Yeah, she's probably about the same height as Kenshin, or maybe a little shorter, and she has long, like, black, sometimes depending on the angle or like the artist, she'll have like very dark blue, but it's like black hair in a ponytail.
Yeah, and it looks like she wears a kimono. I don't know, it's just the image I'm looking at.
Yeah, most of the time that's what she's wearing.
And she has something pink in her hair. Is that like just ribbons or something? Bow. Yeah. Okay, she's pretty. All right, keep going.
Then the other big male co-lead is Sanosuke, who he's introduced in episode 5, I think, as an antagonist originally, and he's in the beginning he's sort of the same thing as what Kenshin was. Like, he's a fighter for hire, but he wants to like get back at the government, so he's like a rebel against the government that Kenshin originally worked for, and he has more of a like older action anime art style, like design, and he uses his fists to whenever he fights. He has spiky brown hair. He wears a red ponytail. He has a white and black jacket on all the time, and his arms and his waist are wrapped in bandages. And yeah, he's introduced as an antagonist, and then once Kenshin defeats him, then he joins them as one of the main male co-leads.
Yeah, and looking at him, just a reference point, in some images here, his hair reminds me of Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters, because they do a lot of the spikes like that too. But it's a little more, I would say, artistic than that, and less goofy.
Yeah.
For sure. He looks really cool. What is it? It says under the name Zanza. What is that?
Oh, that's the name that he goes by when he's introduced as an antagonist, and he originally has this giant sword that's like really cumbersome, and he only uses that when he's introduced, when he fights Kenshin, but then like Kenshin easily gets rid of that, and then from then on he always uses his fists to fight anybody.
And I'm seeing on the wiki they list affiliations and stuff. I'm assuming that's like what you were talking about.
Yeah.
If it's the government or whoever. And then this is just funny to me. They list his occupation as fight merchant, past, and then present, bum. Does that just mean he doesn't do anything now? Like, or are they just being funny? Like, I don't know what that is.
Well, yeah, like once he joins Kenshin's group, he just lives at Kaoru's dojo like Kenshin does, and he just joins fights whenever he is in that position.
Okay. Looks like he has a sword at some point too, but it's really funny looking. It's huge. It looks like a paddle. Like a canoe paddle. Oh, I love that picture of him. Sometimes they draw him with stubble and sometimes they don't. And there's like, this looks like it's from the manga. He's got like a fish bone in his mouth or something.
Oh yeah, he's usually in at least in the early season, like when things are more comedic and not as serious, he's eating a lot.
I think I would enjoy him. I'll have to go back. We'll have to go see. All right, who's next?
The other male, one of the main characters, it's a boy. I think he's probably a tween, named Yahiko. He's short and has like naturally tan skin with like spiky black hair in a different way than Sano's spiky hair. He is also introduced very early on in the series. I think even before Sanosuke is. He bumps into Kaoru and Kenshin when they're walking in the street buying things, and Yahiko intends to steal from them. Yahiko also wants to get back at the government too, because he's the son of a samurai that was killed. He wants to become as strong as Kenshin. He ends up joining their group after Kenshin, like Yahiko gets like kidnapped for ransom or something, and then Kenshin saves him, and then that's how he then because he doesn't really have anywhere to go, so then he lives with Kaoru and joins the main cast, and he practices the same like fight style, I guess, that Kaoru and Kenshin do, and he doesn't really get his time to shine in his own battle on his own until later in the series. But yeah, that's everything about Yahiko.
He looks like sort of the apprentice character. Like you were saying, the black hair is a lot shorter. It's more shaggy style to me. Like it hangs down. It looks like he's holding, I don't know what you call this, but it's like a practice sword.
Yeah, he never has like a sword in the series or in the manga. He always fights everybody with one of those practice swords, like those practice bamboo swords.
Yeah, I kind of figured that was his thing. And interesting, it says he was born in June of 1868, if anyone wants to put an actual year on like when this took place. And it says he starts at the age of 10 and ends the series at 15.
Yep.
And like, what was this? Okay, it lists his weapons as the shinai, the boken, and the sakabato. Do you know what those are?
A sword is a tool to save people with.
That's funny.
Rurouni Kenshin will return in a moment. Rurouni Kenshin now continues.
It's the Wanderer.
Yeah, the first two would be wooden swords, and then the Sakabato is an actual sword, because by the time that he's older, he's using an actual blade.
Okay. And his occupations were swordsman, kenjutsu instructor, and then akibeko, which is technically an errand boy. So I'm assuming he just like did random tasks for whoever, probably Kenshin. And you were saying, oh yeah, episode 2 is when he gets introduced. So that's very early in the series. All right, who's up next?
The last of the main supporting protagonist cast is Megumi, and she doesn't come in until episode 10, I think.
Her alias is Foxwoman. People will like that.
She has long green black hair, like the same color and length that Setsuna would have. She's a little bit older, I think, than Kenshin, but not much, or maybe she's around the same age.
Says 22.
Okay, so she's a little bit younger, but she just looks more mature. And she doesn't ever fight. She's the healer character out of the cast. Again, she gets introduced because she gets saved from being held for like ransom or held hostage for almost being murdered. She doesn't have like a huge role in the series once her arc passes, but she stays with the cast like throughout the rest of it, and she's rivals with Kaoru because Megumi always acts like she's in love with Kenshin and wants to like steal Kenshin away from her, and that's like one of the main parts of comedy relief in the series is between Kaoru and Megumi.
Is it meant to be just silly and she's not like serious about it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that sounds like fun. It says she was born in December of 1857. What is the Foxwoman thing about, do you think?
Oh, that's because Saito, one of the other initially antagonists, but is like he becomes an anti-hero. He always says in the series that Megumi is like a fox, Kaoru is another animal, and then Misao, who is another one of the big female supporting characters in season 2, is like a weasel. So it comes from him comparing all three of them to different animals that like fight with each other in wildlife.
Oh, oh, that's funny. Okay, I get it. I like that. That's cute. I think you said this. She's a doctor, right?
Yeah.
Like you were saying with the hair and everything, I see some similarities to Sailor Pluto or Setsuna. It lists 3 voice actors for her.
I think that would be the case with pretty much everybody. It would be like the original Japanese, then whoever played her in the first English dub.
What's Reflection?
Oh, that's that's the so with the movie that got a different licensor, there's 2 Kenshin OVAs. One of them is Reflection, and they also got dubbed by the same licensor. So that's why it's saying that too. Yeah.
It's saying there's an anime 2023. Did you know about that?
Yeah, there's a remake of the series comes out in 2 months.
Are you excited for that, or are you nervous?
No, I'm excited. It looks really good, art, like animation wise.
So you don't think they're going to give you Sailor Moon Crystal Season 1?
No.
Is what we're saying. You're going to get a good one. I hope so. I might actually watch it when it drops. That would be fun. I had no idea they were doing that. Is there any other characters you think that we should highlight here?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the main supporting cast, I mean, I did mention Saito and Aoshi, who they start out as antagonists, but then they become like anti-heroes. Like they're not fighting against the good guys anymore, but they're not like, they don't want to be associated. They don't want to have the title of like being a good guy necessarily. But the last like big supporting protagonist character is Misao, who joins in season 2, like early on in season 2. She's I think she's like in her mid-teens. She has long black hair and a long ponytail in a different way than Kaoru wears, and she's a ninja, and she was trained and raised by Aoshi, and she's also in love with Aoshi. And she meets Kenshin when Kenshin leaves early on in season 2, when he leaves for Kyoto to fight the main bad guy of the second season. Kenshin just encounters her when he's on the way there, when he's walking there, and she originally tries to steal things from him too, but then he ends up saving her from like a group of thugs that ambush her, and then she joins him and then joins the main supporting cast after that, and is involved in the larger fights and all that.
She's the Weasel Girl.
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought when I saw her was Naruto, because like you were saying, she's a ninja, and she has, I guess, it's like the traditional ninja outfit. Is hers pink? I can't really tell.
I think it's mostly blue, but I think like the outlines of it are pink.
This might just be a funny picture. But she looks like her just art style to me. She looks like she has a very kind face for some reason, just the way she's drawn.
Yeah. Versus
the other one you were describing looks a little more severe to me. Not in like a negative way, but do you know what I'm saying? It's just like a little bit more like she would be very straightforward. I don't know. I think her face is rounder is what it is. It says she was born in November of 1863. What is her on Mitsu? What is that on Mitsu? That's in her occupation.
Oh yeah, she's part of a larger group of good guy ninjas. So she broke off and like does her own thing.
Okay, and yeah, you were saying she comes in later. It's episode 33 is when she's introduced. She looks like fun. I'm looking at. There's like a little. She has a long. It looks like her hair is in a braid. Is that correct? Okay. Any other characters we should go over?
I guess since I've mentioned them already, the last 2, like, technically protagonists, Saito Hajime, who, he's older. He's a policeman for the government, like a secret spy / policeman for the government. He fought against Kenshin back when Kenshin was in his murderous assassin mode. I don't remember if he lost against Kenshin the first time or if they were both equally powerful. I think they were both equally powerful, so it ended in a duel. And he gets brought back in the very beginning of season 2, and he has a rematch with Kenshin that makes Kenshin revert fully back to his demonic side, which is, a lot of people think the episode that it's from is like it's one of the best fights, or not, if not the best fight or / episode in general in the entire original anime. And then after their fight, their rematch is interrupted by police. He technically becomes a good guy, and he agrees to fight against the main bad guy in season 2, and then he stays on friendly enough terms with Kenshin and his friends for the rest of the series.
Okay. And what was his name again?
Saito Hajime.
Okay, yeah, he's very serious looking.
Yeah.
He's 34 is when it starts, ends at 39, and he uses a katana. You said he was the police officer, right? Yeah,
in the modern, like where the series is currently taking place, he's like a secret spy, or like a secret officer for the current government.
Yeah, because it has both, and then it also says Hitokiri.
Yeah.
Did you talk? What's that?
That's the technically that's the Japanese word for assassin.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. And yeah, he comes in episode 28. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he seems interesting. He seems sort of like a serious kind of guy.
Yeah.
Not going to be like, I don't know, to me he wouldn't be that memorable. And then the other one you wanted to talk about was
Aoshi Shinomori. He comes in episode 10. He's initially an antagonist too. I think he's around the same age as Kenshin, or maybe a little bit younger. He's a tall, attractive guy with short blue hair. He has a long white coat with a yellow inner lining. He uses twin small swords in battle. And he's the leader of technically another group of ninja, and he raised Masao. Kenshin fights with him for the first time very early on in the series and wins. And then in between that time, Aoshi becomes brainwashed found and brainwashed by the antagonists into just being a emotionless, killer pretty much. And then he fights Kenshin again in episode 50 something. He after that, when he loses the second time, then he becomes a good guy.
Oh, good. Okay. I was worried he was going to die for some reason. Because I thought maybe they weren't going to be able to fix it. He sounds more interesting to me than the other one. His story, I don't know, maybe it's more developed, but it says he was born in January of 1853, and his fighting style is listed as Kempo, or Kodachi Nito Ryu.
Yeah, those are the Kodachi are the names of the two small, like twin blades that he uses.
Oh, I gotcha. And his occupation is on Mitsu, which I think you told me what that was.
That's the same as Misao, yeah.
Right. And he comes in episode 8, so he's another early one to join. I like the two-sword fighting style a lot. I always enjoy the way they animate that. I'm going to pay attention to him when I watch. And yeah. There's one other character I want to know about before we talk about, do our wrap-up here, but who is Shishio Makoto?
Yeah, he's the main antagonist of the second season, and I guess the season overall, because his arc lasts the longest. He was, like Kenshin, he was an assassin that killed people for the government in around the same time as Kenshin was, and I think it was something that he messed up a job or something similar to that, and then he was to be killed, and he was set on fire, and he survived, but ever since then, his body is entirely wrapped in bandages, and he has permanent burns and scarring all over his body. And he pretty much just wants to, because of what happened to him by the government, he wants to overtake it and rule Japan as a whole. And he has a bunch of various warriors working for him that are called the Jupon Gatana. That as season 2 progresses, each character has their own fights with each member of the Jupon Gatana. Then Kenshin ends up fighting him near the end of season 2, and again, it's a 3-episode fight, and the climax episode of the fight is another one that most people remember as like the best animation, like most iconic of the whole original series. But he's pretty popular for a villain character. Like, there's a bunch of merchandise of him as much as there is Kenshin, essentially, and he's a very good villain as far as anime goes.
I was going to say, his character design is what made me ask, because
Yep.
it was definitely really interesting. And his story is compelling because I think most human beings can relate. Like, the events that led up to it aside, being set on fire and surviving would fuck with anyone. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think any human being on the planet could go through that and come out the other side not a little bit upset.
Yeah.
To say the least. So, I think that's like immediately a really relatable thing to think about. And then you have to kind of weigh, it's like, well, he did sort of put himself there, but does that warrant that level of cruelty and all that?
Yeah.
And then you kind of empathize with it. And I think that that's what makes a good villain, is when you can sort of empathize with them. And the idea being you don't necessarily approve of everything they're doing, but you can sort of see maybe why they went over the edge, right?
Yeah.
And I think that makes him very interesting. So, I don't know, maybe season 2 will be my favorite. It's
most people's favorite, yeah.
I was going to say it's probably the big one.
Okay. Rurouni Kenshin will return in a moment. Rurouni Kenshin now continues.
It was said that he was undefeatable.
For the wrap-up, I don't know if I'm correct, but is Kenjutsu technically like his brand of ability, or like the thing that they use?
For the most part in Kenshin, I mean, there's not really any like supernatural ability. I mean, Kenshin has like godlike speed when he gets super serious, and a lot of people think that, like, when they're fighting him, they think that it's something, otherworldly, but there's never, for the most part, everything that everybody uses in the series, it's all just, it's never like magic or like energy or anything like that.
Oh, I think this is like a misleading image then, because it's from the manga. And there's like a thing that looks like he used a similar ability to like the burning mandala thing from Sailor Mars.
Oh, no, yeah.
So I was like, what is that? So no, it's just like their fighting style, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think it's almost like you were saying, though, when you can take something that is not relying on magic and abilities and like the kind of flashiness of that and still make it artistic and pretty in that moment, I think that takes a really high level of ability to do that.
Yep.
All right. What do you want to end this special with? Like, what are some final thoughts you want to leave people with about Kenshin?
I would just say that, if you're our age or older, or even if you're younger and you like a little bit older anime that isn't too old but was, super popular and mainstream in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, and if you've seen anything of Kenshin and you were always curious about it, and you also like things that are set in, you like manga and anime that is set in feudal Japan, then I would highly, highly recommend it. Also, it might seem a little bit like it's not going to get very serious, or it might seem kind of light and just okay as it starts early on, but once season 2 comes around, it gets so much more intense and gruesome, and amazing fights, amazing animation, performances, all of that. And I think too that the remake in July of the as far as I know, it's a remake of the entire original anime, because they're gonna be able to adapt the rest of the manga that people didn't wait for to get animated back then.
Oh.
I think that'll get people into the series as well, like want to go back and watch the original.
That's a really good point, actually, that now they have that they're doing it now, it's done. So they could just do the whole story that way.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of stuff in Kenshin for Sailor Moon fans to enjoy. And I think that sometimes people think of Sailor Moon and they only, like, their brain stops at, like, the pretty transformation sequences and they forget about the grittiness of season 3. And I think if you're a Sailor Moon fan who loves that part of the series, or any of the really more serious moments, Kenshin is definitely going to resonate for you. Especially if you're someone who appreciates the higher quality art style, because that is something I remember sticking out to me about watching it on, I think it was Adult Swim probably, back in the day. There were several other shows on around it, but Kenshin stuck out to me as being one of, like, the pretty ones.
Yeah.
And I want to say the one that was nearest to it would be Tenchi Muyo, which has pretty moments, but it was more like... Something about Tenchi Muyo to me just screams like standard Japanese anime. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But something about that art style. It's like, it's not bad, it's not great, it's just very good. But yeah, I think there's a lot to dig into here. And I hope you guys will check it out, for sure. By the time this drops, July may have passed already. So... you should be able to find... do you know where they're going to be able to watch the new one?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's... I mean, if it's not streaming on Crunchyroll, then it'll be streaming on, like, some other service in the US.
Does it have a special name?
No, it's not gonna... do you mean, like, the anime itself?
Yeah, because you know how they did Sailor Moon Crystal?
Oh.
Or Eternal or whatever.
No, I think it's just Rurouni Kenshin again.
I would just put in Rurouni Kenshin 2023 then in Google, and you guys should find what you need. All right. Well, thanks for doing this. I think this is going to be a fun one for everybody. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just one other little thing is the cast that dubbed Kenshin was an LA cast, and a lot of them are people that are in the Sailor Moon redub.
Oh.
Like Dorothy Fawn, who plays Kaoru, is the redub voice of On, and also Suprin and Petterall. Wendy Lee, who played Yahiko, is I mean, of course she's using a little boy voice, but she's Queen Serenity in the redub.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like a lot of people that are in Kenshin that are still working today were also part of the redub in some way.
I think that's really fun. One of my favorite things to do with shows like this is if I have a voice actor that I think does a great job, whenever I hear them in something else, I'm like, there they are. And for me, the first one I started picking up on, because of how distinct her voice is, the lady who did Izzy from Digimon. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've interviewed her. Mona Marshall.
Yeah, her. She was the first one that I was ever able to really pull, like, just by audio. Just, oh, that's that one. And I think she just does a fantastic job with, like, every character she has. Who else has she done that we might know?
Yeah, she was, I mean, she still works today, but she was kind of like, for anime dubs back then, she was kind of like the woman that did boy characters. For other people listening that would probably know a lot of the same shows, she was Toboe in Wolf's Rain. She actually played the young version of Kenshin in any time that he appeared as a little kid. She was Wen in Cowboy Bebop, who that's a one episode character, but it's like she was the plot of the episode. Wolfram and Kyokara Mao, Kite in the Dot Hack video game series. She's Doraemon. People don't know what Doraemon is. That's a super old, still going today, Japanese kid show, and Doraemon is the name of the main... It's like a mascot kind of looking character. It's like a little blue cat alien thing that has a helicopter like propeller on its head.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That thing is so funny.
But yeah, she's had like hundreds and hundreds of anime and like anime video game roles.
So if you're a fan of the Viz dub, when you go watch Kenshin, see if you can clock those characters. Because we said them here, but I know you're going to forget, because I would. Whoever's listening, you know. But yeah, see, that would be a fun game to play and a fun way to kind of tie the two together. Who have you interviewed from Kenshin, if you want to list those?
Oh, yeah, a lot. I've done Richard Cancino, who played Kenshin in the TV series dub, and then I've also done Shannon Weaver, who played Kenshin in the movie and OVA Texas dubs. I've done Dorothy Fawn, who played Kaoru. I've done Wendy Lee, who did Yahiko. I've done Lex Lang, who did Sanosuke. I've done Kirk Thornton, who did Saito. I've done Terrence Stone, who did Aoshi. Yeah, I've done, like, tons of people who played large characters in the cast.
Okay. Let's put one out right now that you haven't done yet that you would love to do. Just, throw it into the world.
Okay, yeah. I guess the voice of Shishio, Steve Bloom, Steve Bloom is like a hugely famous voice actor now, but he's done a bunch of anime, and most people know him immediately as Spike from Cowboy Bebop, the main character.
Okay, now I'm interested. Keep going.
So I guess, yeah, he would be like another wish list person for me.
All right, you hear that, Steve Bloom? You're going to do an interview for Chris. Okay. I'm glad he's listening. Could you imagine if Steve Bloom knew what our show was? That would blow my mind. No, of course he doesn't. Who knows? Maybe he's like a secret Deke Sailor Moon fan that's like, oh, I've been waiting for something like this. Okay, that would be great. I would love to hear from him. All right, I think we'll leave it there. And when we're going to actually put this out, what I'll probably do is have
We hope you've enjoyed this very special episode of MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast. If you liked what you heard today, and are interested in more vintage anime and video game focused content, both Sailor Moon related and otherwise, search your favorite podcast app for VAV Radio and subscribe now. VAV Radio will premiere January of 2024.
For more of Chris, you can find him on all platforms at Chris Mayek. Mayek. For more of Alex, you can find him on Instagram at AlexSummersSFE. MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast, is sponsored in part by SailorMoonVideo.com. Shop authentic VHS and DVDs straight from the 90s today at www.sailormoonvideo.com. Be sure to follow us on YouTube under Sailor Moon Video, where you can also listen to full episodes of MOONSTAR.
MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast, is intended for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. We claim no ownership over any licensed and/or copyrighted audio clips, sound effects, or other materials used during the creation of our show. All audio clips, sound effects, and any other licensed or copyrighted materials used during the creation of this show, or any content created in relation to MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast, belong expressly to the license and copyright holders.